I made the biggest mistake of my life and will never say sorry. When I was 16, my dad and I were inseparable. We'd spend every weekend working on his old Mustang in the garage, and he'd always say I was going to be a better mechanic than him someday. My mom would roll her eyes and tell us we spent too much time with that stupid car, but dad would just wink at me. That Friday, dad asked if I wanted to go to the car show downtown with him on Saturday. I had been looking forward to it all week, but then my girlfriend Sarah called. She wanted me to come to her friend's pool party instead. All the popular kids would be there, and I desperately wanted to fit in. When dad knocked on my door Saturday morning, I pretended to be asleep. He knocked again and said, "Come on, son, the car show starts in an hour." I finally opened the door and told him I wasn't feeling well. He looked disappointed, but said he understood and that we'd go next time. But then Sarah called again, asking if I was coming to the party. Without thinking, I grabbed my swim trunks and headed for the door. Dad was in the kitchen making coffee and saw me leaving. He asked where I was going if I was sick, and I panicked. I told him I was just going to get some fresh air. He smiled and offered to drive me wherever I needed to go. That's when I completely lost it. I told him to stop treating me like a little kid and that I didn't want to spend every weekend working on some piece of junk car with him. The hurt in his eyes was immediate. He just stood there holding his coffee mug, and I could see his hands shaking slightly. He quietly said, "Okay, son, have fun with your friends." I grabbed my keys and stormed out, slamming the door behind me. The party was everything I thought it would be. I felt cool and accepted for the first time in high school. But around 4 p.m., my phone started buzzing with calls from my mom. I ignored them because I was having too much fun. When I finally checked, I had 12 missed calls. I called her back, and she was crying hysterically. She could barely get the words out. Dad had decided to take the Mustang for a drive by himself after I left. A drunk driver ran a red light and hit him head on. She said the paramedics told her he died instantly. I dropped my phone in the pool and just stood there in shock. Everyone was staring at me, but I couldn't move. Sarah asked what was wrong, but I couldn't speak. All I could think about was the look on his face when I called his car a piece of junk. I drove home in complete silence. When I walked into the house, I could smell his coffee still sitting on the counter, now cold. Mom was on the couch, surrounded by relatives, and when she saw me, she just shook her head. She knew what I had done. That night, I went into the garage and sat in the Mustang. On the passenger seat was a small wrapped box with a note that said, "For my favorite co-pilot, happy early birthday, son." Inside was a keychain with both our initials engraved on it. He had planned to give it to me at the car show. I never got to tell him I was sorry for what I said. I never got to tell him that working on that car with him were the best moments of my life. I never got to tell him that I loved him more than fitting in with anyone. The funeral was 3 days later. Everyone kept telling me how proud he was of me and how much he loved me. Each word felt like a knife in my chest. I'll never forgive myself for those words. If you still have your dad, go tell him you love him right now. Don't wait for tomorrow.